everyone, Camilla here from Decodable Readers Australia. So sight words, common words, high frequency words, what are they and how to teach them? Now this video will hopefully give you some clarity about the terminology and the implementation of a quality phonics program that teaches these types of words. Unfortunately, the word sight words has a misconception about what it actually means. Now, a skilled reader will read words by sight because what has happened in the process of learning is they have orthographically mapped those words. That means that the brain can see the word and know by sight what that word is. How it actually achieved that is not whole word memorization, in which we were taught back in the day in a whole language approach. What we actually are doing inside our brain is orthographically mapping them, which means part to whole. Our brain has seen those components, those letters on the page, have mapped those to sounds, quickly put that together and lifted them off the page with automaticity. And that's what we call a sight word. Now, sight words should be all words that a skilled reader reads. Every word that is lifted off the page without the process of sounding out and decoding is called a sight word. So what ultimately we want to actually do is have children read all words as sight words, pull them off the page with automaticity because they have a good knowledge of the alphabetic principle, that letter sound correspondences. What traditionally we called sight words is actually our high frequency words. These are common words found in early readers that maybe haven't got the letter sound correspondences that have been taught yet. So they are irregular at that point in time. However, in saying that, with good teaching practices, those words go from part to whole and are able to be orthographically mapped, which means that we already know it's part to whole, what those letters are doing on the page. With automaticity, we're going to lift them off the page and know the word. So let's get into the 4-step process of teaching high frequency words. And we want those high frequency words to become sight words, words that our readers know by sight. How do we do it? Let's jump in. All right, step 1 is to say the word and give it meaning and context. Some words can have multiple meanings. For example, the word to. To can actually have 3 different meanings. I went to the shop, I would like one too, or I have 2 cookies. So you can see words have multiple meanings. So it's important that we start with the oral word, give it meaning, and put it in a context of a sentence to really help that understanding. No point learning words that we don't understand. So that will also help with the spelling of it as well down the track. But step 1 is to say the word and give it meaning. Step 2 is to phoneme map a word. So before we even look at how to spell the word, let's see how many sounds we can hear in the word and then count those sounds as well. So for example, we're going to use the word was. So let's say the word was. Now let's phoneme map the word. That means to count how many sounds. So w, o, z. We've got 3. Now in our Decodable Readers Australia pack, what we actually have is our sounds of reading, our SOR squad sound counters. And what we actually get children to do is bring down a sound counter for every sound they hear. So we're just going to phoneme map that first. W, o, z. W, o, z. Was. Step 3 is to grapheme map the known parts of the word. Now this may differ from classroom to classroom because scope and sequences are different and the timing of the words being introduced is different. So map the parts that students should have a good understanding of that letter sound correspondence. So step 3 is to map the known parts. In a word like the word said, the S made by the letter S should be a known part, and the D sound made by the letter D may be a known part. And then it comes to step 4, which is that explicit teaching of an unfamiliar correspondence. Now, if we have a look at our example word of was, our w sound is made by the letter W, and if that has already been taught in our scope and sequence, that's the one that would be mapped. Now, the O and the Z are made by a pattern that hasn't been taught yet, so this is an irregular for those students if this is being implemented early in a scope and sequence. So that leads us to step 4. Step 4 is to explicitly teach any letter sound correspondences that have not yet been taught, as well as make associations with other words that follow this suit. I call this word friends. These are words that have similarities, and it really helps to make those connections for students. So let's have a look at our example word was. This is where we look at that O sound, and we teach that the O sound is made by the letter A, and we bring down the letter A and say the A is making the O sound in this word. Then we would bring down our Z sound. Now our Z sound is being made by the letter S, and we would bring down the letter S. And then we would say the sounds, now pointing to the graphemes, the letters on the page, W, Oz, was, and we will blend them because we really want to teach children to blend as they read rather than just that sounding out process. Now, the other thing that I would do is do word friends. This is making that association to other words that may have some similar letter sound correspondences. So was, that A is making the O sound because it's next to the W, like in wasp or wash or swan or wand. That O sound is being made by the letter A, and I'd write those on the board just to make that association to those other words. Same with the Z sound being made by the letter S. So we've got was, but his and has and rose, and there's lots of words that have the letter S representing the Z sound. So make those associations. And in fact, I did it the other day as an adult. I used my word friend knowledge. I was texting my friend to bring over some guacamole, and it was a big word. I'm like, oh, how do we spell guacamole? And straight away, I went to the it's like a G and a W sound, and I knew penguin was GU and guava was GU. So straight away, I used my association knowledge, my word friends knowledge, and then I was able to spell guacamole correctly because of that association. We do actually use that process when we're learning to read and spell. And even as an adult, it comes in handy as well. So step 4 is to explicitly teach any patterns that have not been taught yet. So we could call these irregular patterns, but they're only irregular because they haven't been taught. So there you have it. Sight words, high frequency words, common words. What we're actually talking about is high frequency words that may have letter sound correspondences that haven't been taught yet. And I know in some traditional classrooms we call them sight words, but don't forget, all words should be sight words because that is the end process. That is what a skilled reader does. They read those words by sight, because all of their alphabetic principle knowledge, that letter sound correspondence knowledge has been learnt, and the brain is very quickly putting those together and lifting those words with automaticity off the page. So our ultimate goal is to make every word a sight word. I want to leave you with one last thought. Mr. Potato Head. When we have a look at Mr. Potato Head, we see a hole. But in fact, any child or adult is going to be able to tell you that Mr. Potato Head is actually made of many pieces. And this is exactly how words work. Although they look like a whole, they're actually made of different parts. And we can use those parts to make lots of different designs, just like we can use lots of different letters to make different words. So Mr. Potato Head is a great analogy to explain to both students and teachers of how words work from part to whole. Although we see a whole, it's actually made by its parts. So I challenge you, bring in a Mr. Potato Head and use this to explain how words work.